This is Gordon Kaye, DJ and producer, and you are listening to the Liverpool Connection podcast, Music and Football episodes.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. I am your host Daz. This is my Music and Football episodes where I usually bring on a guest to talk about the two loves of life for me, which is music and football. Lately, I've been steering away from the footy just because, as everyone knows, I support Liverpool and it's not been the greatest season. So the less footy chat for me, you know, is a little bit better. My guest today, though, he's a DJ and producer, has been in the electronic music scene for 30, probably going on 30 plus years, which is amazing. You know, he's still DJing, he's still producing. Today I've got Gordon Kaye. Gordon, welcome to the pod, mate.
Hello, Darren. Thank you very much. Great to be here. Thank you.
All right. Looking back behind you.
I'm looking back behind you and looking at that impressive trainer collection there.
Hey, maybe we can do some swaps.
Yeah.
Do you know how many records you have?
I do, yeah. Well, roughly, I'd say I've probably got about 15,000 here. I used to have a collection of 40,000. When it got to the early 2000s, I moved, and my record room became about a quarter of the size of what it was. So I had to shed 30,000 records, which was quite a task, but I managed to do it. And it is good for you. You know, you get rid of stuff that you've just been hanging on to that you don't particularly need or don't really know why it's there. So I did go through that, but yeah, it's grown again because you know, I culled it to about 10,000 and it's been growing again. I still, you know, I can't help myself. I still buy vinyl, not as much as I used to, granted, but I do still buy vinyl. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, I like it, like, you know, how not for us, you know, not for the old timers as I call us, but you know, the kids are starting to get into vinyl again, which is nice. You know, it's not like you have to explain what this black disc looks like or how it works. You know, so you go to the record shop and it's nice to see, you know, kids digging in the crates again.
Yeah, I remember when it's sort of the upturn came and people, you know, the kids started getting into it. I don't know, I'm going back 10 years ago or something like that. You know, I remember hearing a few comments like, "What? You actually turn this thing over? There's something on the other side of it." You know, so, yeah, it's funny because obviously they, you know, some of them grew up with CDs and that's a very different concept, isn't it? You just put it in and just push play and off it goes. But yeah, the sort of having to get up and turn the thing over and play the other side of it.
Are you kind of like me with vinyl? Like I've always said this, like I love the smell of brand new vinyl. You know, I am one of those people. It's, you know, call me weird, whatever. I'm, you know, some of my mates are like, you are just off your rocker. Like you like, you know, I don't like sniffing brand new vinyl. It's just the smell of it, you know, but it's the artwork and everything. Are you one of those as well? Did you like
printed, yeah, sort of smell? Yeah, yeah. I'll let you into a secret. Acetates, they're another thing. The smell of acetate is a very, very definite sort of unique smell about acetates when they're fresh as well. Yes.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I just remember being, you know, like 13, 14 years old, running back from the shop. You know, whether, I mean, I used to, not until later on, I used to buy from 3 Beat and Eastern Bloc, but I'm talking about, you know, your Marks and Sparks and stuff like Woolworths, just buying in the bins, just running home with a Frankie Goes to Hollywood 12-inch. And I just could not wait to not only just put it on the turntable, but read every single word that was on there. I mean, I'm one where I love to know who did the artwork, who produced it, who mastered it, who engineered it. I just am.
I think that's coming back, isn't it? I think, you know, the kids are interested in that sort of thing again. It was kind of forgotten, I think, with the CD. Yes, all the information was there in the little booklet that was in the case, in the jewel case. But I think, you know, it was quite hard work to read it all, wasn't it? When it was that small. So yeah, it's nice to see it all coming back, and it being about the whole artifact now again, rather than just that piece of vinyl. It's about the sleeve, and all those kind of things. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like wherever you buy your stuff, like online, digitally, it's a little soulless for me. I'll always say that, because all you're doing is like, listening to a snippet, you're pressing a button. There's no artwork. I mean, yes, you have the little, square picture and everything, but that's not enough for me. But I understand, moving into a digital world, it's a lot easier on the back, just putting your gig stick in your pocket and you're ready to go, rather than carrying two record cases across a field, so that helps. But there's still nothing like, buying vinyl and just, because there's a difference for me, especially, digital. It's so clean, while on a record you can hear, the little pops and everything and the crackles. I just like that sound.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of it. Even when you'd have to like flip up the arm and with the with the dust.
The dust.
Yeah. Even when the turntables, when you're out playing at a rave and the turntables weren't level and they get bumped, and you just like those are the small things in life. But Gordon, I wanna go back for you. Like always, my first question is for each and every guest is, what was playing in your house as a kid, and did your parents' music have any influence on you growing up?
I've got to say very little. I'd love to be able to say, they were listening to all these cool things. They really weren't. There was a sort of, I guess, a radiogram in the lounge that had, some records in it. And there was nothing really that appealing. The most appealing thing, do you know what? I dug this out because I found it. This was in the radiogram. It's Songs of Chigley and Trumpton. And that was, that we had that, and we had like a Wombles album, that sort of thing. And we used to listen to those. But there was, my parents' music was, so my dad was really into Shirley Bassey, which was cool. And my mum was into, I think my mum was into Perry Como or something like that. And there was sort of Connie Francis LPs and things like that. So there was nothing that really interested me at all. But the radio was on quite a lot in the house, and that would fluctuate between Radio 1 and 2, I guess, really. So you did hear things like, the Beatles on the radio, sort of, I'm talking sort of early to mid 70s. And I was interested in what I heard, but nothing had really kind of quite grabbed me at that stage, let's say. It wasn't until, I'd say I was sort of nearer 8 or 9 that, the Top of the Pops thing came in, and you just had to sit there and watch Top of the Pops on a Thursday night. That was where you got everything from, and I guess that's the first sort of place that I really formed my taste in music. There were things on there that I saw that I didn't particularly like and didn't relate to, and there were things on there that I did relate to. So yeah,
I think if you were born in Britain in the 70s and 80s, you were watching Top of the Pops on a Thursday night. That's just how it was. You kind of had your whole dinner around it. Everyone was sat in front of me watching it. But I'm with you as well. Like, I mean, Top of the Pops, you would see some, acts that you definitely like, the Combi Harvester nonsense. The 70s had a lot of novelty records and early 80s, and that was not my bag. It was just awful stuff. The Tweety song, for God's sake, please stop.
Wurzels, all these kind of things. I guess, I don't know, Grandma's Party, or there's just so much rubbish on there. But then you get a little snippet of something like, I don't know, T-Rex, or, Mark Bolan, or, Bowie, maybe, if you were lucky, or, those sorts of things. And then, so I was, what was I? I was 9 in 1976. and that was punk rock coming in, you know. And yes, I was too young to go and see those bands, but there was some excitement about seeing some of those new fresh faced bands, you know, on that program. You know, things, you know, you were seeing things like the Stranglers, or, you know, clips of the Sex Pistols and things like that. And I wouldn't say, you know, I was immediately hooked, but I was really interested. This is something different. What's going on here? You know, this is different. And that's kind of where I went, you know, very, very, very quickly. You know, I sort of went to that side of punk. And, you know, as I say, I was too young to go and see the bands, but I was really interested in the sound and the way they looked. And I knew how much they were sort of making the sort of the older generation of that time, you know, feeling very uneasy about the look and everything, and thinking, you know, this is it, this is where it is, you know. And then the post-punk thing that came after was really gripping as well, because it kind of turned it on its head again. And you know, where the punk thing was I guess pushing back to sort of the 60s psychedelic bands, the garage rock bands. You had the post-punk thing was different. It was bringing in, you know, influences of dub and reggae and all those kind of things as well. And you know, the sound was very sort of angular, quite bass driven and beat driven. You know, sort of groove rhythm driven. And yeah. And then, you know, if you really ask him where I got my sort of taste in music from, he's a massive Liverpool fan. You'll know John Peel. That's it. You know, I from the age of 10, you know, when I was going to bed, I shared a room with my brother. And I used to get a little radio with a little white earpiece, and I'd put John Peel on, and I'd listen intently to anything he was playing. And I'd fall asleep with it on. I'd wake up in the morning, and you know, there'd be the breakfast radio still playing out my earphone. You know, it's earpiece. So, yes, John Peel. I mean, I literally every night would listen to John Peel every night, and that's where I formed my real taste in music.
Same here. The Peel sessions were just ears to stuff I've never heard before. You know, whether it be like African music. Music, you know, Americana. He I mean, I've always said this. If I could go back, or if, you know, there was ever a chance for me to go into the Peel sessions, and you know how they do the little episodes where they have a guest who goes into the record and they're allowed to pick one record from his collection.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure I've seen that, or I think I've heard of it, but I've not seen it. Yeah. Is it a radio thing?
I've seen it on YouTube because Damon Albarn was on there, and I would love to just spend an hour just going through stuff. You know, I don't think I'd be able to pick just one record. It'd have to be blind, you know. I'd have to be blindfolded to be able to pick one, because I would be like a kid in a you know, candy store just going, you know. I mean, he really did. Like, you know, I have to say, my sister was a big influence. I was massive into the Jam, and this is early on, because I loved lyrics, but I love lyrics that kind of, you know, made me feel something. And even though, you know, they're kind of like, you know, down south boys, I really like it felt like, you know, that teenager angst. I was like, I'm feeling this, you know, like
I was massively into the Jam as well.
Just Paul Weller was just like, again, I like to call these people poets. You know, modern day poets, because they just were absolutely amazing with their lyrics. And you know, that's why I find, like, I'm a massive fan of Public Enemy. You know, yes, I'm not, you know, African American, but the words he says, you know, you can relate to a point. You don't. I think when, you know, people like Chuck D, you know, talk about things, it's a generation, not just one culture.
exactly. Yeah, it connects to everyone in that generation, and yeah, absolutely.
Well, what was the first like kind of like dance record that you kind of turned on to?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, even from watching Top of the Pops, Chic, I love seeing Chic on Top of the Pops, those sorts of things. But John Peel was playing, I think I heard my first house music on John Peel, to be honest. I think it was probably about 86 or something, and he played a track by TJ called I'm Back Again, which it took me months to search. I eventually got an American import. But yeah, he was playing things like that around 1986. And so I was hearing that sound coming in. I mean, before that, there was obviously into the electro stuff I was into as well. But yeah, as you say, just the breadth of music that he played. He played reggae, he played world music. You'd hear the Bundu Boys next to, I don't know, Public Image or something, or and Cocteau Twins and The Fool and all these bands. And yeah, it's just. And then he played some 50s rockabilly thing or something as well. It was a fantastic time. Fantastic time.
Yeah, I mean, a big influence for me with the electro was Mantronics.
Yeah, love Mantronics.
It was just like again, the mid 80s, you're into breakdancing and the whole, tracksuit wearing, just deer stalking hat. You look back and you go, good God, you look ridiculous in some of the outfits that I wore. But, it's a segue to like, a guy called Gerald in 808 State when I first started to hear them on John Peel as well. I was like, what is this music? Like, it's something different. At first I was like, this bleepy bloppy stuff, like, because I think most households had Commodore 64s. So, Pong, ping pong or whatever it's called. Pong, is it? The bloop, bloop, bloop.
Yeah. Pong.
Yeah. Starting to hear that in music, you were just like, what is this? Is this an extension of Commodore 64 games? But it drew me. And I remember just like the YMCA DJ playing this stuff, and I was just too nervous to go up to him and say what is this stuff. But I'd be that one lad that's watching the record go around like that, trying to figure out what it said on there. Eventually had the balls to actually ask what's playing, and he's like, yeah, I see you kind of stretching your neck every week trying to read the records. You just need to come and ask me. So it was just a great time, I think, from going to electro to kind of the early acid house, and it was just it took off from there, didn't it?
It did. I was very fortunate as well. I mean, you're talking about where my influences came from. Top of the Pops first, and then John Peel, and I'd say the other sort of big landmark for me would be the fact that I was lucky enough to work in a secondhand record shop from the age of about 14, 15, probably just turned 15. But I remember going in, I mean, it's a shop I frequented all the time anyway. I always used to buy records in there. And I love the secondhand shops because you'd always find sort of obscure things in there. And the guy said, I'm looking for someone to work, do some hours. And I said, yeah. And he said, right, okay, we'll come in on this day and I'll ask you a few questions to see how you got on. And it was literally like a sort of a knowledge quiz about music. And I think I answered most of the questions correctly. It was like, yeah, okay, you can start. So, but it because it was a secondhand shop that had it sold all kinds of music really. So not so much on I suppose it did have a few classical records, but he used to buy record collections. And we actually went to Radio 1 once and cleared out a DJ's records from there. I was on the van when we went up to do it, and John Peel was sat in reception when we went up there. But so he had contacts. He ran one of the largest sort of record fairs on the south coast in Brighton, which was at the Brighton Centaurs. So it's a big fair, lots of stalls. But he also had a shop, and he used to buy collections. And he bought, I mean, this is a little bit later on, but he bought, DJ's collections, as 40,000 records, that sort of thing. And they come in, and I can't remember what you call those things. Do you remember those? tape things where people wanted to sort of mark their belongings, they put those sticky tape things on with the letters, and you'd sort of imprint the letters on it. I can't remember what they were called, but bought one collection. It literally every record had this on the label, this DJ's name, and but yeah, it was my job to sort of sort them all out, clean them up and put them in A to Z and into the relevant kind of genres and sections, and it was DJs would just come in because they would hear about that some DJ's collection had been brought in or whatever. And at the times of Rare Groove, I mean, we got the most amazing record collection and sort of jazz, funk, fusion stuff as well. We had the most amazing collection. And DJs would come from, all over the UK because they'd hear about it and come in. And, we had Norman Cook was one of our big customers. And we'd also have, trying to think, people like Steve Davis would come in as well. In fact, the boss once said, I really, really want to keep this check because he signed it and put it on the wall, but it's worth too much to be able to cash it. Things like that. But yeah, so they were really fun times. But, we'd stock reggae, really good reggae stuff. We had a good distributor who brings stuff in. There'd be punk stuff, disco, house, everything. So when you're working the shop, and the boss, when I started DJing, I was 16. So he was trying to sort of tell me, what kind of music I should listen to and what I should play. And he'd say, have a listen to this. And he put all these things on. And, it formed a grounding sort of point in my, in forming my taste in music, I guess. So, yeah, I've always had a very wide taste in music.
Yeah, I think that helps, because I know I cannot listen to the same music over and over again, like a 4/4 beat or breaks. I just can't do it. I think I have a good ear for music, and as long as it makes, it's passionate and you can feel what's coming out the speakers, then I'm all good. I still can't wrap my head around like country music.
Even country, I actually DJ'd a country set once, believe it or not. I mean, it was all on CD, it was all files or whatever. But I was DJing for it was an art exhibition actually for an artist who I know called Stuart McAlpine Miller. His art's fantastic. He was resident at the where was he resident? It's a Savoy or something like that. I can't remember, but he's a resident artist in one of the London hotels, and he was doing an exhibition in Brighton, and my wife kind of was managing the art gallery, and she said, we got on anyway, so he said, come in and DJ, and I knew he liked country music, so I played a lot of country music, and that actually got me into it. There are a few things that I've heard that I like country-wise, but yeah, again, it's not my main forte.
Yeah, it's just, well, I mean, especially like the pop country, I just...
Oh, no, not
I can do a bit of Willie Nelson now and again,
Yeah.
I mean, like proper old school country, but most of it's just... I can't relate to, having a truck, drinking Budweiser or shooting my dog. So, I just can't relate. So, but when you said you started at 16, was that just basically just having fun with it, or were you going, this is something I really want to do?
Yeah, no, this is something I really wanted to do. I mean, from the age of 13, at school, we'd have like, we had music lessons, and I didn't play anything. I couldn't play anything. My parents, I guess, wanted me to play the piano, and I wasn't interested in the piano. I mean, what did the piano have to do with sort of punk rock, really? So I really wasn't interested. I wanted to pick up a bass guitar. That's what I wanted to do. And they were like, it's kind of piano or not. So I never learned. But in the music lessons, obviously, people would play. But we also occasionally would have one where they say, bring some records in, and we'll play some music. So I always had a really good record collection from a young age. I'd always, even when I was probably like 13 or so, I'd have about that many 7-inch singles. I had a fair few. So I used to take them in, and other sort of kids in the class, because they didn't, some of them didn't have records, they'd be like, oh, can I just play one of yours? And I was like, yeah. So yeah, I'd always wanted to share music as well with people. I think that was the basis of it. So, I'd take my singles into these music lessons and we play them, and then I got the opportunity because I shouldn't have even been in the establishment I was in, at the age of 16 when I was DJing. But I got lucky, really. There was a sort of, it was in the times of, I guess, sort of goth and wine bars, if you like. And there's this place in Brighton called the Electric Great where Norman DJ, Chris Coco DJ'd, and lots of other DJs in Brighton DJ'd as well. And it was kind of the place to go, if you're going to a nightclub. But although it was a bit gothy, it also had really cool music as well, electro and jazz even sometimes as well. That the sort of landlord was a DJ and played jazz and played it very well as well. So I was offered by, I used to go down there anyway because I liked the music there. And one of the DJs was on said, I just can't do it next week. And I was like, can I do it? And he said, yeah, I'll speak to the landlord, see if he can do it. And yes, I was really fortunate that I could. And, to go straight into DJing on 1210s in 1983, was it 1980? Yeah, they were around in 83, weren't they? Yeah, they must have been because I was DJing them. But, I turned up to these things and I thought, these are state-of-the-art turntables. This isn't your double-deck setup, and they were only set up on two sort of round bar tables, if you like. But, it had a mixer there and stuff. And so I was very fortunate that early on I was able to, play records on good quality equipment down there. And yeah, it went well. And, I didn't have a record box. I carried my records in a bin liner down there, and the bin liner split and all the records fell out. And I walked down there and walked back. It took sort of 20 minutes, half an hour to walk there. So yeah, it was all very hand to mouth in those days. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And that's where it came from. And the sort of contacts I met there, and, they became the nightlife in Brighton. And therefore it was quite easy to move on and, to the next step of DJing after that.
Yeah, I've got a crazy 1210 story. I used to work in a cafe, and the owner was like, they just bought next door, and he's like, do you have a spare couple of hours to go clean next door? And I was like, yeah, as long as you pay me, I don't care. And I'm cleaning. There's just loads of crap in there. All of a sudden, I see a tone arm, and obviously I'm pulling stuff off, and it's 1210, and I'm just going, okay. And then there's another 1210 next to it, and then there's a mixer, and then there's some lighting. I'm going, what's going on here? So I go back to the owner. I go, do you know there's some 1210s in there? And he's like, 12 what? I'm like, turntables. He's like, no, it's all from an old club that he'd just bought a bunch of crap from.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what about them? I was like, well, are you getting rid of them? He's like, well, they need to go in the bin. And I was like, okay, I'll help you put them in the bin. And and that's what my first decks and mixer were for nothing. I got very and they were all they just needed cleaning inside. And it's just a story I love to tell because
you're lucky,
very lucky because
to save up for mine,
how much they go for these days is absolutely insane. But they're like a Rolls Royce of turntables. As long as you take care of them, you can have that same pair for a lifetime.
I've had a few pairs because we had record shops. Eventually I ran record shops, so we had Joy for Life. We had two, one in Brighton and one in Nottingham, and we did buy and sell 1210s. People come in and say, I'm selling my 1210s, or have you got any to so any one time we might have had about 10 around the shop. But I've still got 3 in the house. And I think that just that thing of, when I started DJing, obviously there was no mixing. It was about programming. It was about, building a sort of energy with playing music. and the good thing was that I got to play on these turntables, as I say, in 1983. So by the time I was ready to, and playing dance music and wanting to mix, I already had that feel of those turntables. I knew how they worked, and I was familiar with what you had to do with them. So that was another great step, and helped me learn to sort of mix when that came along, beat mix, fairly quickly, really. Yeah.
I think that the whole thing. I think of the earlier DJs was programming was number one, and I think that's massively underrated. Kind of now with the kids just want to bang it out, and it's just banger after banger, and there's no programming involved. There's no and I know it's cliche to say journey, but when you're listening to a certain type of music, I do want the DJ to take me on a journey. I want those troughs and highs and lows and stuff. But I think just, watching, especially Northern Soul DJs, being able to seek one into the other, without beat matching, but just a continuous flow was what I was really interested in. And that's what really, got me into wanting to DJ is just
blend that smooth transition without the actual matching of beats.
And you hear it from people like David Morales too. I heard him not too long ago say, the people these days are not letting these records play. They're cutting it out after 2 minutes. That's not what the artist wants you to do. And I get that. I've always said now we have the attention span of an ant. It's a minute or two, and get that record off. Let's something else. But I've always loved the 8-9 minute long tracks. Always loved them. I just do, and I love the long blend mixes. That is true DJing for me. Obviously, yes, you have your turntablism, which is totally different. But a proper good DJ for me can see 1 to 2, 3 records for 10 minutes, and create a third or fourth track. That's the whole idea of DJing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It blows my mind how you want to get. And I kind of understand to a point, a lot of these festivals, you have an hour, to just get on and bang your set out, and then off you pop to, wherever else you go. And I'd much rather see a DJ play 3 hours than I would a DJ play 1, because after 1 hour, you're just getting going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's I've done it a few times. I've been asked to do festivals and things, and as you say, you get an hour slot. But then I've done the other side of it as well, where you've been allowed to play sort of 5-6 hours, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, watching the likes of Garnier, who goes from jazz records, ambient, to deep house, to tech house, the proper tech house, not this bollocks that they're trying to throw to the masses right now, and then techno, and you're just how did he get from A to Z in 3-4 hours? And you just I just went on a musical journey. That's what I miss. I don't go out as much as I'd like to. Having 4 kids, it's hard, and obviously headliners don't go on still till midnight. I'm going, there's no way I'm staying out that late anymore. That's why.
But these there's sort of the day rave thing now. There really is.
I'm liking it.
And, it's kind of perfect for our age group, really. You go along at sort of 4 PM, and it goes on till 10 o'clock at night. And if you go to something in London, you can still be back home by midnight. It's all manageable, I think, and I think that's the right way to go forward with it for our age group, anyway.
And lots of seating.
Lots of seating, yeah.
Well, you know, let's talk about Brighton as well, because that's where you grew up. I mean, you had the Zap Club, you had
Yeah.
Concord too, and you had your residencies there. Why do you
Yes.
think Brighton is such like a melting pot? Obviously, I know it's by the sea, but
Yeah.
it just seems like so many incredible nights came from there. So many incredible DJs and producers. Why do you think that?
I don't think Brighton was really known for that sort of thing before the very late 80s. I mean, yeah, you used to have like bands like The Who doing residencies at the Sea Life Centre, if you like, or whatever it is, the and things like that. So I guess you did have things coming to town quite a lot, and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles used to play Brighton as well, the Hippodrome and places like that. But I think I don't think it was all just Brighton clubs that were bringing, that were happening. I think it became a sort of chosen place for clubs outside of Brighton to come, like Tonka, for instance. Well, they came to religiously on a Monday night at the Zap Club, and they brought people from all over, and I think that helped spread the word about Brighton, if you like. And it's a nice place to come. You're by the sea, it's great, and most of those clubs are on the seafront as well. So it was very appealing to a lot of different people. It took a while to build, I think, that reputation of Brighton. And certainly when I started DJing in Brighton, there were some very good, small, cool clubs, but it wasn't really known outside of Brighton, I don't think. And then you had the DJs as well. I remember when Carl Cox originally came to town, and I'd just never seen anything like it the first time I saw him DJ. It was actually my younger brother, who's 4 years younger than me, who said, "You've got to see this guy." And I'd actually met him because he'd been in the record shop and bought records in the shop that I was working in. But, the first time I heard him play, I was like, wow, that is technically, that's unbelievable. And that spurred me forward to want to sort of beat match properly as well. So, yeah. But yes, as I say, I think there were a lot of clubs that were coming to town. Full Circle, Flying, all those kind of things were coming to Brighton as well, and doing Monday nights at the Zap as well after Tonka. It built from there. So people in Brighton were very lucky that there were all these established and cool clubs outside of the area that were wanting to come to Brighton.
Well, do you think? I mean, obviously, there's a massive difference now because you've kind of got to create a brand, to kind of be in that tier one DJ, kind of group. I mean, I think back then it was more organic, it was more hard work. You start out as a resident, DJ, and how many nights a week you play, and you just work up to get that main slot, For you, obviously, you did that.
Yeah, I did it. I wouldn't necessarily say it was the hard way. It's just a different way. I mean, I think it's just as hard to try and crack it with the social media side of things now. I mean, it's the audience is probably maybe more immediate if you can get the following. But it's just a different way. It's a different way.
What's your thoughts? Because I've had this talk quite a lot. For me, resident DJs are number one because they're the ones that set the tone for the night. They're the ones that work their asses off. And I don't think they get the recognition that a lot of, the headliner obviously comes, does his thing, that everyone's there to see him. But I think we miss a massive point in pointing out these resident DJs are the bread and butter of the club scene.
Yeah. Absolutely, that your resident is the key point. I think they're who's going to start the night off. They're setting the scene for that guest to come in, and it's a really valuable and important part of the night. Is setting that scene. You've got to just get it right, because if you go in, if it's too much of a pace or the music's too hard early on, it's going to spoil it for for the rest of it. So they really need, residents are really worth their salt, because they have to get it right. They have to build that. It's their night. They've got to build it.
When did the production side start for you? Because, I look at your discography, and it's insane to think that you've collabed with so many different people, and then your track with your daughter is your first solo one.
Yes.
That's mental.
Yes, I know. I mean, so how did this happen? So I was asked to do a remix. I think it was probably 93, something like that, for Polydor, for a band called Freaky Realistic, and they had a single called Reach, and it was the record label. I think it was Polydor. Somebody from Polydor, it might have even been Simon Harris, bless him, came to me and said, "Oh, would you do?" I tell you what it was. They were doing a focus on record shops, so they wanted a record shop to do a remix for the artist, which I thought was a great concept. So the mix came out under the name of Joy for Life, which was the brand of our record shops. But that's how I got that first break. It wasn't, we want Gordon Kaye to do it. It was, we want a record shop to do it, and I was associated with the record shop. So yeah, that's how it happened. And as you say, I've been very lucky to work with some very, very talented people and collaborate with them. And that one was actually with Tim Bran, who I think was in Dread Zone, and amongst many other things. But yeah, Tim Bran. So I worked with him, and I thought we did that at Swan Yard years ago. So yeah, that was my first experience in the studio. I really don't think I knew what the hell was going on. I just kind of picked a few samples out. I remember picking a Captain Beefheart sample out, and that went into that one, and things like that. And I was fascinated by what was going on, but I didn't understand it. I liked what came out of it, but I had no idea what was going on really. And then from that, Stress Records. So I mean, again, the shop thing really helped with that. They wanted to get DJs in the studio making tracks, and I was lucky enough to go in there. And for that one, I worked with James Wiltshire, who is the Freemasons, or was the Freemasons, with Russell Small. So worked with him very early on. He was also working with Chris and James, and as the DeLorme as well. So yeah, he was already in that DMC studio space. Yeah, and then working later on with Mike Monday, we did stuff for Yoshitoshi Deep Dishes label, working with Nick Hook for stuff on Whoop Records. And yeah, I got better, in the studio. I was never that technical. I was more the ideas kind of side of it. And I just thought, I'd not done anything since about 2012. I did a remix for Public Service Broadcasting of Everest with a good friend of mine, Tim Rivers. I got far more involved in that. And I think the reason why this happened was you were given a deadline and you were told you've got 2 days in the studio or whatever to come up with something and do it. And, it was funded and you just had to do it and you just had to meet the deadline. So I didn't have time to actually get my head into what is going on here. I just need to throw the ideas out, and somebody who's much better at putting it together than me will do that. So, you work with really talented engineers and that would happen. But then my curiosity got the better of me years later. And, I had a setup, I guess at the end of the 90s, I had a setup at home, very basic S1000 and keyboard, and running on an Atari Cubase and that sort of thing. And then I progressed onto Logic on a Mac when the G4s came out. And I started to understand a bit more about it. I was still a novice, really, but over the years, I've gained more knowledge. And I think the key thing is that it's actually become a bit easier as well to do this stuff. The technology's moved on vastly. I used to hate naming samples in an S1000 on the floppy disk, and now it's all done in the Mac, in the laptop and stuff. I've got a few bits of outboard, and I've got a few sort of, you know, hardware things. I bought some of the newer boxes that come out and things like that, but you can get just as great, you can get great sounds out of them. You know, you can buy something that's, you know, this big, that's, you know, it sounds so close to an 808 or a 303, and the cost of it is next to nothing. And I use those boxes, you know, I do use them because they sound great. So I about a year ago, my studio hadn't been out of my desk still is in the attic, and it's been in there for about 20 years. I just don't use a desk anymore, but I will get it out because I do want to see what it looks like. But yeah, I started getting really intrigued with it again, and I thought, I'm going to teach myself how to do this. And I'm, you know, I wouldn't say my mixes are the best, and I do get help from people to do that final mix down, but basically the whole thing's done myself in this room, and I really enjoy it. You know, it's my passion now. I love making music. And my daughter, so she's 23. She's a very, very talented musician. She, unlike me, who never learned to play anything. In fact, what I should say is 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I got a bass guitar because, as I said earlier, I've always wanted to play a music instrument, and I've taught myself to play that, and that's what you hear in the tracks that I'm making now. I'm playing that bass guitar. And my daughter, though, is a very talented pianist, and she plays the clarinet. At the age of just under 14, 13, she was in the National Children's Orchestra of Great Britain in the under 14s. So we used to travel around the country seeing her play. She went to the Royal Northern College in Manchester. She went there doing a songwriting course and stuff. So she's very, very capable. We haven't really collaborated that much on the music. It's really her vocals that she's contributed. I think we are going to do more stuff. I'm putting the music together and even playing very badly the keyboards and things, or, you know, getting help from the computer. But I think we will collaborate further on stuff. But yeah, she's I've even been writing the lyrics for the songs, but I think we're going to collaborate more on stuff because it seems to be working. It's good. We've got the second one is literally on a sort of final mix down at the moment, and will be out very soon.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it must be so cool to just work with your daughter, though, you know.
Yeah.
And kind of, it's that pinch me moment. Not many people, you know, get to work with family members.
There's a few other DJs out there, you know, Greg Wilson, Kelvin Andrews. These people have, you know, their families are getting involved in what they do, and they're, you know, they're getting involved in what their kids are doing. So yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so refreshing and good to see. But yeah. You know, when I first heard it, because it's been doing the rounds, like Balearic Burger, you know, John's stuff that he does. You know, I first heard it on a mixed ride, and I was like, I'm having some of that, just because like it just seems like the older I get, the slower the BPMs.
Yeah,
you know, I love my prog house, I love my, you know, proper tech house and everything, but these slow burning chuggers, I'm all about them, you know, I really am. And yeah, like, have you heard John De Silva's new track?
Yes, I have. Yeah, it's fantastic.
I mean, again, Ride to me is on that level, because you can play it in different sets. You can play it in a house set, you can play it in a break set, you can play it in a kind of a down tempo set. And that's what I love about tracks like that. So yeah, hats off to you for Ride. And if the next one's as, you know, as close to that, then, you know,
it's different. We haven't gone for the slower side of it. It's more like the remix that I did of Galactic Ride. So it's, you know, it's in the 118 BPM kind of field. So it's not quite touching 120, but it's got an acid sort of push to it as well. And yeah. I mean, that's very much the kind of music I want to make. I lost my passion with sort of house music, I have to say, in the kind of, early to mid 2000s, I was just hearing so much watered down rubbish and, you know, remixes and rehashes of things, and I really lost my way with it. And I went back to my kind of indie roots, if you like. I went back to DJing, and, you know, after bands, Echo and the Bunnymen being one of them, Stiff Little Things, all these bands that used to come through Oxford. I was living in Oxford at the time, and they had a great venue there called the Zodiac, and the bands used to come through there, and then I'd DJ after us on a Saturday night. I just didn't want to play dance music. I did. There was exciting stuff around, like Soul Wax and all the Too Many DJs things at the time, and Justice and all that kind of stuff, which I found really exciting. But I didn't want to play house music, and it wasn't until sort of 2010, 2012 that I heard, you know, Weatherall and Sean Johnson starting to do something a bit slower, and I thought, wow, this is going back to where it all came from, that sort of Balearic thing, you know, that, you know, Weatherall started off doing all those slow sort of mixes, and it seems to be going back to, and I really got hooked into that again, because that is really how I got into dance music, was, you know, the Balearic side of things, and that sort of, you know, the Primal Scream thing. We were very lucky that we had, I had loaded on a test pressing about, I guess, 3 or 4 months before even the DJs had it, because Bobby Gillespie was coming to my club, and he brought it down and he said, have a listen to this. And, you know, the club wasn't open at that point. He came down early, brought it in a little plastic bag, and we put it on. And I just remember thinking that it was Weatherall's mix. I was like, that's the future. That's something complete. That's a Primal Scream record, you know. And that's what got me into dance music, I guess, really. And you know, and I, you know, I think what I do in the studio now is maybe, it's, you know, it's in that similar kind of vibe, really. You know, it's not straight up dance music. It's got hopefully a bit of a sort of left of centre feel about it.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's being thrown at the cosmic disco, psychedelia kind of sound.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm the same. Like, Weatherall could go in the studio, take rockabilly, take punk, take ska, take African music, and turn it into gold. I mean, he just had that touch. I mean, I could say, like, same Loaded. I was, and even Paul Oakenfold's Hallelujah, Happy Mondays. I was like, holy crap, you know, because being from Liverpool, I mean, I was massive into, you know, the baggy indie nation, Stone Roses, Charlatans, Happy Mondays, Primal Scream. So, you know, I mean, you were dancing anyway, you know, to baggy music, but then when you're hearing, like, Loaded, as soon as that first, you know, we be free, you're just like, oh man, and the horns come in. You're just like, I'm having it, you know. It's like one of my favorites too is Justin Robertson's Waterfall mix, Stone Roses. Just it's just like, again, I wish I was a fly on the wall in the studio when they, you know, when they dissect stuff like that. You're just like, man, you know, I've heard so many like great stories about Weatherall, you know, for the people that really knew him. And you know, he just seemed like such a down to earth fella that just was in love with all sorts of music. And I mean, you know, that's how it should be, to me. You know, we always take from little pieces of different styles of music. You know, I just love it. But, you know, it just seems like you're 30 plus years, you know, you're still DJing, you're still, you know, producing. It shows that you're in it for the right reasons. You know, there's so many kids that watch these YouTube videos and just think caviar, champagne, you know, I could get laid every single night if I'm a tier 1 DJ. But it's like, are you in it for the right reasons, which is the passion for what you're doing?
Yeah, it's always been the music for me. Everything's about, you know, the reason I went out was because of the music. You know, it wasn't really to socialise. It was because I wanted to go out and I was hungry to hear that music. You know.
I mean, you know, you've done it all. I mean, you've been on the Essential Mix, Pete Tong's Essential Mix, which is the pinnacle. You know, for somebody that wants to get their mixes out there. You know, your Mix Meg live. You know, with John Digweed on the other side. It's just, I mean, you could stop there and just go, hey, you know, I've done it. You know, it's got to make you feel good, like you're still in the game, you're still loving the music, but you know, people can look back, you know, especially the young generation. I always say, like, go back and listen to old mixes of my guests, and you'll be pleasantly surprised at how really good they are. You know, sound quality might not be as good as what they are today, but you know, go back and listen to these mixes and these long mixes, and just, you know, I tell people, same with Bandcamp as well. You know, I'm a big like Bandcamp fan.
Yes,
Because I'm like, you make the music, you should get paid for it. You know, all these record companies and even like, you know, digital sellers take most of the money, and I just don't understand that, because you're the one that came up with the music. That is your art. You should get paid for it. So
yeah, Bandcamp's giving control back to the musician, you know, to the artist, I think, which is a great thing.
yeah, Bandcamp Fridays, come on, 100%.
Oh yes,
You know,
yeah,
you can't complain at that. But you know, I you know, I've got many mates in Brighton, the Black Octopus lads.
oh yeah.
My best mate is Pete Bones.
Yeah, I know Pete very well. Yeah,
cheeky chappy.
yes.
But it just seems to be doing so well again. You know, Nick Hook, he's doing his stuff, and I, you know, from what I gather from me mates is, you know, obviously there's competition for nights, but there's good competition to make things better in Brighton. You know, and that's what I like. It's not trying to get one-upmanship, but just making, you know, bringing in DJs like, you know, especially Black Octopus lads, bringing in Slam, Carl Craig, Laurent, you know, that probably weren't there for a while. So it's just great to see, you know, and I've been to Brighton quite a few times, and, you know, I told Pete when I come back home next, I'll come see him and sit on the Pebble Beach and
Well, let us know. I'll come join you.
Yeah, we'll all just stare off into the distance and you know, talk absolute waffle. But so you said you've got you're working on your next single. When
it's done. It's just getting mixed down at the moment. So yeah, sort of a couple of weeks time, really. Hopefully, I'll be putting out. I've literally done one mix of this one. I did a sort of package. We did the slower mix of Galactic Ride first, and then moved on with I decided to do a more sort of dance floor version of it. With this one, I've just gone with a one mix. You know, it's aimed at the dance floor. It's 118 BPM, and those who have heard it seem to like it. So yeah, it's very different. It's very different to Galactic Ride, but it's still got that sort of, you know, left of center dance floor vibe.
Well, I think, you know, with social media now, it's easier, obviously, to get your tracks out, you know, compared to back in the day where you used to have to, you know, put your records in the boot of a car and go to all these record shops and go, here's 20, you know, see if you could sell them. Now you just put your tease your track out, you know, on Instagram, I would say, is probably, or TikTok. You know, I'm not a TikTok fan, because I'm not in my 20s. Instagram a little bit easier to maneuver, but you know, it's so easy to kind of tease it out there. So rather than and for you, still being in the game and everything, DJing and producing, was it easy to come into like the new social media kind of era?
I kind of, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? The change, getting used to things. I remember the MySpace days and making that step to Facebook and just thinking, hang on a minute, this isn't the same. It's not all about music on Facebook, but it's become that really. That's what I use it for a lot, is to keep in touch with friends and see what they're up to music wise, and who's listening to what. And I'm very new to Instagram, if I'm honest. I've only really just started using it probably in the last year or so. I sort of kept away from it, I think, because I just thought it's all about images and photography and that sort of thing, which I love, but I just sort of concentrated on the music side of things with Facebook. But now I'm doing both. I don't do TikTok.
No. I don't think anybody over the age of like 25 should be doing TikTok. It's just, it's not for me, and I don't think it's for a lot of people. But, I know it's something that we have to do, social media. Like, I look at my kids, and as soon as they get home from school, they want to go on their tablets and stuff like that. And you're just like, oh my God, you worry like what they're going to find on the internet, and you have to put the whole parental block on. But it's just maneuvering through things. Like I've had the same issue for me, like getting gigs like over in America, is how many followers you have, and you're like, you what? And then being told like people won't even look at your Instagram if you have pictures of like you fishing, or it's got to be music, or they won't even bother. And we're missing out on so many amazing producers and DJs because of this, and it does get on my last nerves that like some promoters are only booking these people because of their followers.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a different world, mate.
It's a different world.
Absolutely different world. But I always say this, an hour goes by so quickly when you're talking about something that you're passionate about, you love about. And Gordon, mate, I'm absolutely honoured that you came on.
It's great to speak to you. Great to be on. Really enjoyed it.
It's always great to hear stories of the past and hopefully the future as well. So it's something, like I always say, I bring on guests that I know who they are, rather than bring on somebody that I don't know and I would not really know what to talk to them about. There's some people can do it. They get a producer, put a piece of paper in front of them with the questions. And I'm like, again, that's a bit soulless for me. I'll always do this. I have to have guests on that I've bought your records, I've seen you DJ, that's the whole thing. That's where the connection is.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's great to be here. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
So thank you, Gordon, again. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please like, subscribe, put your notifications on. Please go to gordonk.bandcamp.com. He's got his ride mix, his ride track, a few different mixes on there. My favourite is the Dubriella mix.
Dubriella, yeah.
That's my cup of tea. I mean, all of them are great, but it's just that one mix is it just gets me. Go check out that. As Gordon said, he'll have his next track out hopefully in the next month or two. So look out.
Garbage in and garbage out.
Huh?
It's called Garbage In, Garbage Out.
Oh, I like that. That could work for a number of reasons in this world.
I must say I've got about 90% there at the moment, so they should start coming through a bit quicker than the gap between Galactic Ride and this next one.
Well, I look forward to it. As I always leave you, everyone, please look after one another. Don't be arseholes. We have enough problems in this world, so take care of one another, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.